All right, everybody, it's the Jere Metcalf Podcast where top real estate agents tell how they do it. And today we have on the show Miranda Cady in Orlando, Premier Sotheby's International Realty. She's a top agent. Your average sales price, I'm going to fill everybody in quickly and then I'll let you say something. But average sales price is about 1.2 million in a market where the average sales price is about 340 in a company that holds the highest average sales price that's about 600. So you are a high achiever. You're well within the top 100 of Premier Sotheby's International Realty. So Miranda, thank you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Jere. I'm really excited to speak with you today. I love what's happening here in Orlando Metro, and I'm just honored to be sharing this time with you. I love what we get to do in real estate, and hopefully we can inspire some other agents along the way.
I love it, and I love your energy. So everybody, I have to share you just something personal by Miranda. So we've been chatting, except when she chats with me, she sends voice texts or voice. I like write back. Like I'm on a podcast, but I can't, and I just loved your energy. I'm like, I cannot wait to do this today. So here we go.
Yeah, I read somewhere in a business book actually that so much is interpreted through tone in addition to facial expression. So when we're sending text messages, I think sometimes we assume that our clientele and customers are reading between the lines, but sometimes things can be misperceived and misjudged. So I try to send voice text whenever possible because it eliminates that misinterpretation.
What makes it personal? It's like special.
Yeah, like they get the mood, the energy, and you can kind of uplift them a little bit too, in addition to giving them the business news of the day.
I love that. Okay, so tell us, Miranda, how and why in the world did you become a real estate agent? What's the story?
That is a great question, Jere. And honestly, I think a lot of people would be surprised by the answer. Not only do I have a passion for people in business, but I'm an abstract painter and an artist. So for me, the opportunity to align myself with a brand that specially focuses on having the Sotheby's auction house in London and New York, it was a no-brainer. I wanted to align myself in a place where art is valued. And 5 years before I got my real estate license, I started kind of interviewing Sotheby's agents and asking them, like talking shop and learning the ropes and how they got into the business and best practices and best strategies, so that when I did get my license, I was ready to hit the ground running in this field. Obviously with the hopes of hanging my artwork in some of the most expensive elite homes around the world via myself and my Sotheby's colleagues. And so far it's a mission that's working well in my favor.
That's amazing. So two things. Number one, like you don't sound like an artist. You sound like a businesswoman. But number two, you're taking something, because everybody says don't be a jack of all trades, but you're taking your passion and you're driving it. You're not getting yourself pulled in two directions. You're reinforcing your passion into another passion, because clearly you love homes, and you can just tell talking to you love the business of being a real estate agent.
I love it. Back in high school, I remember daydreaming about being an interior designer. So everything in life just kind of falls into place, right? You kind of have that Zen center of focus where you know who you are, you know what you're capable of doing. And I'm a natural innate connector. So it doesn't matter whether it's, entrepreneurs in the business space within my city or buyers and sellers. It's natural for me to gravitate, find the different puzzle pieces and how can I get them to work together for synergy so everyone wins. So these are just things that come innate, and I'm honored and blessed that I can do it here in this space. For me, art is a passion, but I think any good parent would tell you it's probably not the route to take for building your legacy and your wealth. So for me, it was a long-term strategic vision. I mean, in theory, this is something I've always kept to myself, but inevitably when my paintings are in art collections amidst the Monets, the Picassos, whatever, when the kids are like, Mom, Dad, love you, hate your art taste. Let's pitch that, sell it, send it to Christie, send it to Sotheby's. The goal is that my work will be amidst those collections at that point in time and creating my own legacy. It's really about curating a list of people who own my art, and that list is growing exponentially long, and I'm very blessed for the names that are already on it. So for me, it's a passion that I get to do in my downtime when I'm not doing real estate transactions, and it just happens to have a synergistic effect where both help each other in brand building.
That's amazing. So being someone with two passions, they're kind of on, in many ways, they're on different ends of the spectrum. How did you know? Like, what guy, like, was it, because most of us fall into real estate for the money. So I'm sure that had an appeal, but still, like, how did you know it would work? What drew you to it?
I didn't know it would work. It was really a shot at a dream. And I just realized I was very good at it. I'm good at authentically listening to people, observing, taking in. So when I'm in someone's home, I'm analyzing everything. Some people will say that the best look into someone's life is if you peek in their fridge or their closet, right? So when we're in someone's home, we get a really good feel for who they are. So even when I'm pairing up my art, I'm very attuned to what pieces they currently have in their collection. And if there's something that I have back at home that matches that aesthetic. Now, when it comes to real estate, it's being attuned to how they live their life, how they play in that space, hearing them and what their intrinsic motivations are. What are their objectives? What are they trying to achieve? Downsizing, upsizing, relocating, and helping them find the next best step so they can accomplish their dreams. I think it's about just authentically listening, being present, and feeling a need in either space. So it happens to work synergistically for both in my case.
So clearly you've kind of found your path and you're on it, but I bet it wasn't just like, you didn't just land there.
No.
So how did you figure it out? And how did this all come together? Like, what's like, clearly the shit hit the fan. This is a podcast. Sorry for everybody I offended, but to get to the point, like at some point listening to your story, there had to be like this moment of like, what I love isn't really working to align, like the passions aren't aligning. So you reeled them in and pulled them together so beautifully.
Yeah.
Like, what was the story? What was the moment?
So there definitely is this catalytic point in life where you kind of step back and view everything from a bird's eye view. And for me, I'm huge on self-motivational books, inspirational speeches, podcasts like yours, great books. So, it's really about even the book. I love Good to Great. If you haven't read Good to Great yet, absolutely do it. It's kind of about having a hedgehog focus. And for those of you who have read the book, you'll understand what I'm saying. If you haven't, go read it. It's amazing. Versus this kind of fox mentality. The fox is very tricky, always looking for a different modus operandum and a different move, oftentimes spreading itself too thin and exhausting itself of its resources. But a hedgehog buckles down, has one strategy, A to Z. And for me, it was just getting rid of the excess, anything that was a distracting deterrent. So I might not paint every day. Maybe I paint a few times a month, but everything I do is a habit, a routine, and a schedule. So that way it's predictable. I can recreate, and it's about having dedicated actions, dedicated goals, and doing consistent daily work for those outcomes. That's whether it's real estate or art. That's how I've had the most success, is just by being consistent and investing in the hard work. Most people will see the success and what happens on the outside and those aha moments where it's like, oh my gosh, she just came up out of nowhere overnight. But they didn't see the 10 years of labor ahead of time, planning, structuring, marketing plans, campaigns, connecting with my Sotheby's agents or fellow colleagues in the real estate industry at high performing teams throughout the country, getting on those phone calls, having those conversations, sometimes 3-4 hours a day when I was starting my career before I got busy with clientele. So that's kind of, yeah.
Well, because we're going to get back to what really happened. But in the meantime, let's fast forward to where you are now, because you're giving a lot of hints and help us know. So now you're in a market, you're in Orlando, and you're in a market where we want to talk about a few things. As many markets, we're watching new normals all over the place. Many markets are emerging because COVID and many other things happen, and people are moving. Your career is doing the same thing, but in that, over the years, you talk about you've built your network. You've built a network across agents across the country in Sotheby's, and as we talked about offline, even outside of Sotheby's. And so in doing that, you have become this great resource to, we always say, like, know what you're good at. You're good at helping people learn and welcoming people who are moving to Orlando.
Absolutely.
So give us, like, what does it look like today? What do you love about it? And then I want to go backwards and see how you figured this out.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to set up the framework. For me, in order to broach or have those conversations with top performing agents, Tomer Friedman in LA, right? Kevin Brown in New York. In order to get in front of them, I knew I had to be an expert at my own community. So early on, it started with daily commitments to reading articles in Orlando Business Journal or Growth Spotter, finding out who the heavy hitters are here in my community throughout different industries, and really becoming an expert in knowing the pulse of what's happening in Orlando. At this point, being on the forefront of all the tech growth and all the synergies happening, like Orlando Economic Partnership is working at moving the center of the metaverse to Orlando and creating a tech hub triangle between Tampa, Miami, and Orlando Metro. So between everything happening transportationally in our community, in addition to industries relocating their headquarters here from Palo Alto, Seattle, et cetera, it was being the area expert and knowing what no other agent could know about what was happening here and now. So that when I'm having an intelligent conversation with another agent in their market, we can discuss the synergies, which corporations are relocating, which chief executives are moving and on the go, which billionaires in my market have a $90 million estate in Pacific Palisades in their market. Like maybe their home here is only 10 million, but I know that they have a $30 million estate in Big Sky, Montana at Yellowstone Club. You know, it's about having the inside information and knowing what's happening behind the scenes so that you can be that trusted resource. And when they're trusting a cross-country relocation that's sometimes being purchased sight unseen, they know they're in good hands with me and that I'm going to take good care of them and get them in the neighborhood that's in the right fit, in addition to the city, because it might be they're better suited for Tampa or Sarasota or Fort Myers. And it's knowing my state in addition to my market, my metro market. So I would say just educating yourself every single day so that you are performing at top tier peak where no one else can outrun you.
So it comes down to create the habits that make you an expert. And to be an expert, you need to have the inside scoop on your market. You also need to have the inside scoop on your market and other people in your market and other people in your, and there are two resources there. Where is everybody going out? Where are they coming from? And when they come here, I may not be their first choice, and not being attached to that and offering them options of, hey, this city in Florida, if you're coming to Florida, because Florida is definitely a target state for a lot of people, like, look at this city. And here is the person, by the way, to talk to in this city. Yes. So you've brought together this whole package. Mm-hmm. Now, you started this way before COVID happened, from what I can tell, or right
before COVID. It's why I was able to kind of surf the wave where other agents got tackled by it and found themselves drowning. I was able to surf and ride because I was already prepared for that migration. It was something I was already focused on, cross-country relocations. And I already knew my feeder markets and migration patterns. So New York and DC, Boston on the East Coast are some of our biggest feeder markets into Orlando Metro, with Atlanta falling a little bit behind that. When you go over to the West Coast, it's San Francisco, LA, and Seattle. So it's about having the pulse point, watching the migration patterns, understanding who's doing what and how you can connect. I mean, I could talk to people in Scottsdale, Arizona all day long. I love it. They have a great golf community. I'm a huge car enthusiast. So the RM Sotheby's auctions and Barrett Jackson have my heart. But in reality, there's not a lot of flow between those spaces. I know some great agents there, but there's not a lot of traction back and forth. Not yet. We could create it, but right now.
Yeah. So do you find yourself getting in the plane and going there, or what's the best way? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So frequently I go to as many networking events as possible. I aim for at least quarterly, sometimes monthly. Honestly, I try to get out of the state and on a plane, on the ground in other markets, in another state, in another market, tour the estates and mansions. I've been able to tour some of Tomer Friedman's estates throughout Beverly Hills and LA. They're incredible. Those $50 and $150 million estate mansions are mind-blowing and mind-boggling. At this stage, we don't have a lot of that product here in the Orlando metro area. That doesn't mean that won't change in the years to come as our city grows up and becomes something really magnificent.
That's awesome. So it's about going to see people and going to conventions where there are other agents present. Yes. To meet other agents in other markets, and then also going and learning the markets. So Absolutely. Let's rewind. When you became an agent, did you come into this business knowing this was going to be your approach, or did you discover it?
I discovered it. I think like many young, naive agents, I thought the business was going to fall in my lap. I genuinely thought I was going to sign up with Sotheby's and the calls were just going to come trickling in like, oh, you got your license. Here's your book of business, right? So right. It's a tough learning curve. I'm grateful and thankful to be tenacious, and I'm one to never give up. So I just really dug in and I did the work. Ironically, I think it is funny. I do see some people wanting the results, but not willing to put in the effort. And even here in my market, I'm an open book. I'm happy to share with everyone how I've done what I've done, how I do what I do every day. I really don't see many people willing to invest the time, energy, and resources to have the outcome that I've achieved. It really takes daily dedication and strategic planning with your marketing, with your relationships, and with your time.
Well, you've not only won business, you've won business at a higher price, almost 4 times the average price in your market. Does that business come more from, is it the referrals from outside of the state? Is that where most of it's coming from, or where do you get it from?
Both. So I strategically understand that I really believe in like the 80-20 rule, or more so probably the 90-10 rule. 90% of my business comes from 10% of my clientele. So 2 things. 1, relocations and referrals have been a great source of incoming traffic at higher price points. Most notably, ironically, from my home state of Minnesota. I guess people like to evade the cold weather. But then also, focusing on IPOs. Orlando Metro has had a few really significant companies go public. And when someone's worked their entire career on taking something public, they usually have certain things they've been saving for or planning for, a certain kind of estate they want to live in, a certain kind of vacation property they want to buy, a certain car they want to drive. And once they've hit that aha moment, they typically reward themselves. So I've been honored to be intimately connected with a high profile performing company here that went public, and I've helped many of their executives either relocate here from other states. Most notably, there was a VP of legal who formerly worked hand in hand with Elon Musk at Tesla. I got to help him find an Orlando home.
Oh, how fun.
Oh, Jere, I love this story actually though. So in the midst of the most competitive sellers market that anyone's seen to date, right? And we're shopping this lakefront property. It's this beautiful, like great Gatsby style Art Deco home. It was actually really cute. Like the right person would have paid top dollar for it. That being said, my specific buyer wanted to do some things differently. So for him, the value and the price point was really the land and the lake. So his offer, we ended up pitching an offer. I was a little bit embarrassed to put it in immediately, but we pitched an offer that was basically the land value. So they had it listed at 2.95 originally, or excuse me, 3.5. They came down to 2.95 right before we put our offer in. We got it under contract for just over 2 million. And ended up closing and negotiating down a couple of times. It was a 2.2 million.
Wow.
And then negotiating it down, we closed at 2.02. We got him like 30% off of the value in the competitive sellers market. And we're able to just, by strategically, consistently, when we put in the original offer, they pulled it from the market. They were so offended with our offer, they pulled the property from the market, which actually worked to our advantage because then we didn't have any competition.
Remove the competition, yeah.
So it was just really interesting the way that it played out. But that was like a big trophy moment to be able to secure something significantly under market value in such a competitive seller's market. So it's about being diligent, it's about being thoughtful, and it's about being persistent.
And when you connect, for example, executives, is it about going? A lot of people go to the company. Is it about where and how have you found your best connectivity? Is it through other agents? Is it through your contacts in Orlando and identifying those companies? Or what is the lens that you look through?
All of the above, a really macroscopic lens, and then going micro when something grabs my interest. When you see movement on something, then I pay attention. But originally, it started with reading the Orlando Business Journal, finding out who like the top 100 performers, the 100 most powerful people in my city were, what they were excelling and performing at. Going to the events where these people are, right? Like being present in public, going to the galas, going to the nonprofit fundraisers, being at the sporting events, being seen in public with the people you know, like, and trust, and building that network and circle. I think within 3 years of living in Orlando, I had the mayor's cell phone number in my phone, right? It's about connecting in meaningful ways and always adding value to their relationships and being a point of contact. We're not just connecting sellers and buyers in real estate transactions. We're being the source of connection throughout the city. So if I know of something that can help their business propel to the next level on a certain category, I go ahead and make that introduction. So you're becoming an asset, an ally, and a resource, and 1 degree of separation away from everything they're trying to achieve. That's my goal.
Exactly. I love that. That approach is being in front of them. And I noticed you said in public, but being present in public and being their asset, their ally, and their resource. Mm-hmm. Because once you've done that, that's where people miss it. Like, don't withhold. That's the interview.
Yes. Yes.
BDS at the Ally Resource, or how else is it going to happen?
I love hearing conversations about like, what do you do at the listing presentation and the interview to set yourself apart? I'm like, I very rarely have competition.
Exactly.
Like I show up and we're signing documents and they never interviewed any other agents because they just knew that I was going to be the resource to get it done the most efficiently for them and get them the outcome that they wanted. And really, when you think about it, at that level and the caliber that they're playing at, time is money. They have all the money they need. They don't need more money. They need more time. So when you can cut out and be the resource and the ally, saving them steps in their other ventures, whether they're doing, they might be doing a funding round for their company they're taking public or some joint venture. If you're a resource and an ally and you have the access to who's doing what, where, and who's interested in what, you can cut out a lot of middlemen and a lot of wasted time for them and be at the top of mind when it comes to anything they want to do in your city.
Exactly. So we're done now. That was a great interview. I'm kidding. But that was the best. Like, that's it. That's beautiful. That was so beautifully said. But I think even to drive it home.
Yeah.
Everybody says, I need the listing presentation. How do I get the listing appointment? You don't want the listing appointment. You want the business.
Yeah.
You get the business, be their ally, be their resource, be their asset, and the competition goes away. Because if you have to go to a listing appointment, you might, that's a lot of time.
Red flag.
And you, like, do I need to? No, I don't need to keep going. Exactly.
And, that doesn't work for every market. There's some markets that are much more proper and structured, like maybe New York or Boston, where it's expected, the interview process. But for mine in Orlando, it's a little bit more relaxed. It's about who you know and showing up immediately. So very oftentimes I'll just get a text message, hey, can you shoot me over that paperwork? And they're filling out the paperwork on Dotloop and it's done the next morning and we're ready to go shoot photography and videography. Like sometimes the process really is that easy. I think sometimes we kind of get in our own way and make it more complicated than it needs to be. And a lot of that excess can really be eliminated. I don't know if anyone's read the book Effortless. Greg McEwen actually spoke with us at Level Up at Pacific.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh, amazing. Great keynote speaker. He spoke with us at Ranches Palos Verdes when we were there at Terranea. It was an incredible networking event. But, it's about cutting out the excess steps. Sometimes we make things more complicated because we want to put the gold star on our chest or our back and feel like, we did something exceptional when oftentimes we're doing more work than is what's required of us. So make it as simple as possible, systematize it so you can rubber stamp it and repeat it more efficiently.
Exactly. Effortless. And he also wrote Essentialism.
Yes.
I think he wrote Essentialism first.
Possibly.
Yeah. It was about doing what's essential. And then he was still like, he said, I felt like such a hypocrite. So he's like, it's not just essential, but how to make what's essential effortless.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's a great book. Okay. So in your career, as you've gone through being an artist to realizing and finding this path and being an agent and being such a great connector and businesswoman, and now you're going to bring everything and it's all aligning. What a unique path. What has been your biggest lesson or biggest challenge and lesson that came of it?
Great question. I pride myself in providing concierge luxury service to any customer at any price point. Like I go above and beyond consistently. One thing that I was not prepared for with the exponential growth that I had was having enough structure in place within a team so that it wasn't solely reliant on me. It made me very aware, there are days at the peak of busyness where I'm texting, literally just texting, not emails, phone calls, all the rest of it, 40 to 60 people a day. It is unsustainable, not only from a health standpoint, but also from a business practicality standpoint. When you have that level of concierge service, you need a support system, a team, and more people to rely on. So I think one of the errors we tend to make in this industry, and I know some agents excel at it. They can control their business independently. One of my favorites in Asheville, I won't brag too much about name dropping other people's names, but there's an agent in Asheville who does everything independently, and she's a powerhouse. Like she knocks it out of the park every single time on every transaction. But I know for me, being a mother of 3 teenagers, sometimes I need to refocus and give them my attention too. So I'm currently in the process of teaching a team everything I know. It's my goal to make them 10 times better than I've ever been in the industry, giving them all the tools, resources, and data to excel and succeed, between the tech tools that I use privately that have helped my business grow, in addition to just systems and operations. So I'm currently in a phase of training, mentoring, coaching, and growing some really incredible power players here in my market.
That's awesome. So you're in the midst of building. Are you
Yeah.
just like, as you build, well, let's get back to your lesson. Your lesson is, I can't do it on myself. I need to streamline, because I'm all about white glove service, concierge service, which means there's some things that need to be streamlined so they get more of the part of me that they need, want, and brings the money, and brings the value.
Yes.
So in the meantime, no, go ahead.
No, some agents do that specifically with admin staff, but I really believe in diversifying, because we focus more on a buyer clientele. We also do high-end luxury listings and have excelled in that space. But I want carbon copies of me, as good as me and better. That's the goal. So yeah, I've definitely diversified in that way this year. We're taking advantage of the slow summer months. Summer typically tends to be a slower season. So we're utilizing this space and time to hit the ground running come fourth quarter and next year.
So we get a lot of questions,
Yeah,
like about team structure. So as you build your team, I love how I'm like, I do this. I want to ask 3 questions at the same time.
Go ahead.
Can't do that. But what structure are you creating, and what are you modeling it after an agent, or where's the strategy? What's the strategy, and how did you create it?
Great question, Jere. I think it's so important when you're building a team, not only to know who you are and what you're trying to achieve, but to know who you're not. And for me, the focus of building a team has never been to have my face on everything. I don't want to be the power player, rainmaker, that's in front of everyone. I picture the team structure for me personally to be more of an Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. I want collaborative communication. I want to see everyone's clear and distinct, unified vision, and then see where the overlapping sectors lie and how we can excel strategically as a whole. So it was really about pinpointing the right people with the right mindset, individuals who already excelled at being self-driven and self-motivated intrinsically, not people that I have to babysit or coach or teach necessarily. People who, when I give them all the tools and resources, will run with it outside of me having to push. I'm not pushing, I'm not pulling, they are running alongside me. So that's really the structure. I've seen a lot of team structures. I know a lot of people do the typical listing agent, buyer's agent. I don't really see that working for the model that I've created. Instead, we've decided to divide the nation into East Coast, Midwest, West Coast. Each of my agents gets to become an expert within their coastal region and build intimate relationships with agents. So East Coast is focused on New York, Boston, DC, Atlanta. Okay. Midwest is focused on Minneapolis, Chicago, Dallas. Right? And then West Coast, you're focusing on Seattle, San Francisco, LA. So
to bring clarity to what you're talking about for everybody listening, what you're talking about is your business is coming from other agents referring you from other parts of the country. So you're creating a team of people who specialize and understand different parts of the country, so that when they bring clients in or sell to clients coming from those markets, when you have listings, because it's a huge asset when you have agents who understand other markets to be able to position your properties to all markets, by the way, as listings. But you're talking about a team of people who, because we've got a new normal of everybody's coming from everywhere across the country to everywhere, but especially to Florida. There was actually just an article in the Wall Street Journal about this. And when they're coming into Florida, it's about understanding where they're coming from and what's important and how to talk to them, which we said that, but now because I'm saying the same things, I'm going to stop y'all, but they're coming from different parts of the country, having people assigned to different, but you're still in Orlando. You're not creating a team in New York and a team in, I love that. I love that.
And you nailed it. Like, to bring it home and hit it on the head, exactly what you just described. Let's just say we get a call from someone selling their property in Boston. They have a brownstone in the back bay, right? It's understanding that those people have to pay for parking. They might have 1 parking spot, 2 parking spots is exponentially a bonus, and the property value soars, right? It's about knowing the market in the city. So if they're used to brownstone living in a townhome or a single family home in that structure, it's understanding the walkability, the green spaces of what they have access to. What neighborhoods are like that here in Orlando? We only have 2 in all of Orlando Metro that even come close to that. So, you really have to understand where people are going to want to relocate to. Oftentimes they want a similar feel to where they've come from. Sometimes they want something completely different, like beach living, right? And we have coasts on either side. In Orlando, we have the East Coast, Atlantic is just 45 minutes away. We have the West Coast, Gulf side beaches, an hour and 15 minutes away. Why that's so important?
Crazy, isn't it? Yeah.
If they're surfers, they want Atlantic coast. They're not going to want to go to the Gulf Coast. There's no real good surfing on the Gulf. You can go wakeboarding, you can go wake surfing, but the Gulf
paddleboard.
Yeah, exactly. So we really do have to understand.
Right.
Yeah, and you mentioned relocation patterns into the state of Florida. NAR, National Association of Realtors, just ranked Orlando Metro as the fastest growing metro region in the nation for commercial real estate in Q1 of 2022. Why that's so huge for residential real estate? The commercial is naturally going to trickle into the residential sector as you see more office space going up, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Orlando's office space has only had an 8% occupancy rate all through COVID. Mind blowing.
Wow.
We outperformed Miami by 10 points on the National Association of Realtors scale when they were measuring commercial real estate. So we're going to see a huge influx. We beat out all other 4 major metropolitan markets throughout the state: Tampa, Sarasota, Fort Myers, Jacksonville.
This is the part of the interview where I just bring my husband on, because he actually does office tenant rep all over the country, but he's based in Atlanta because. But I'm like, I overhear conversations about that's it, right?
I love
that. That's incredible.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
I love what I get to do here. Yeah. Each agent is going to specially focus on knowing and understanding not only the agents in the other cities, but the layouts of the cities and the lifestyle of the cities. Jumping on Zoom calls, much like this interview here, they're going to be required to do 2 to 3 interviews a week until they build up a really solid expertise in that realm. The people on my team are already experts in Tampa, St. Pete, and Clearwater. In addition to here, they own properties there. They've lived there before. I formerly lived in Sarasota. So I lived on the Gulf Coast in Sarasota for like a decade. So we really genuinely are experts on Central Florida and the coastlines. So we can speak to, if you want to live in a different region throughout the state, we're happy to tell you if that's the lifestyle you want. We know it. We know the restaurants, we know the dining, we know the shopping, we know the schools. So yeah.
Question. Of course, 2 things, what you're talking about. I want to restate what you said and then ask you a question about what you said. Yeah. So like, to bring it home, it's all about getting it. Marketing's about attention. Mm-hmm. But everybody can get attention. Now it's the right kind of attention with the right people. So what are the trigger points? When you're selling Orlando, it's about the beaches and the coast and the office space. When it's about a property, it's about highlighting the parking and the features to someone in New York City. You're going to grab their attention. Yes. Somebody in Orlando, like, parking's parking. But if you're from New York, you say parking. I know they're moving to Orlando. It's everywhere, but it's how you highlight it to draw them in, to get them to the right property, or at least to the right agent. Brilliant.
And if you're a car collector, not only can you have a 3-car garage here for a very affordable price point, you can have a 20-car garage, and we have properties like that. So if you happen to know, and you happen to get to them first, or they get to you first, which is even better. To give you a price point comparison, right now, I just had the pleasure of showing one of the most expensive listings on the Winter Park chain of lakes this last Friday. On the Winter Park chain of lakes, on Lake Maitland, on one of the most private exclusive neighborhoods in 12 Oaks, you can get 4 acres on the water, lakefront, recreational chain of lakes, boatable to the Racket Club across the way. You're going to love this price point. It is a 16,000 square foot home, exquisite property, 16 million. That's it.
Right.
That's
it.
But
see, 16 million in Orlando 2 years ago was too much money.
Right.
But 16 million Orlando now is a sweet deal. Not to kill your sales pitch, like,
absolutely
sabotage.
The property can be subdivided. It's 4. You get 4 acres on the water for something.
Right, and not only that, it drives the point home of how our markets and how our markets are changing everywhere. Now, back to the I'm going to go backwards. I have a question, and it may have caught the attention. I know some people are listening are asking this. You said your agents are required to do, I think it was 2 or 3 interviews a week. Now, is that interviews with new clients, interviews with you to make sure they're on the market? Like, what are those interviews?
Interviews with other agents to understand what's happening around the country. Forefront of expertise, not only about what's happening in Orlando Metro, but understanding traffic flows throughout the nation.
So now, you're
Who
big on
wants to interview with us?
Because here's what, everybody. So here's the next question. How are you going to track all of this and keep up with it? I guess that's why you have different people, first of all, but do you have a system? Like, what are the systems that keep all of your ducks in a row?
Much like yourself, Jere, I started doing some interviews with folks at the beginning of COVID with industry leaders throughout the country. Those fun people on LinkedIn and Facebook with the blue checks by their name. I did a series called Coping with and Growing Through our new normal, or COVID-19, right?
Yeah.
I asked them, and this was like in March, just after all this started happening, when it was very fresh, like, we're working from home. What does that look like? What tips do you have to survive this? And so I set up a system through
honey. I was thriving. COVID was my favorite. But anyway, not COVID, but I loved like the time at home. Back to your point. So you're asking everybody, like, what are you doing? How are you adjusting to the changes? And
so we set up these interviews. Scheduling them does take time. You and I both know that. It's a commitment. But if you use links like Calendly, you can send out an email to people, follow up in a text message, and get back. And then we're recording the Zoom calls. We're recording that. 1, we want to be able to focus back on it. But 2, we want our clientele to know that we are the experts on global traffic and relocation. So we're going to be posting those up on our YouTube channel.
That's awesome.
Don't tell people you're the most connected agent throughout the world. Show them. And you've done that with this podcast. You've been exceptional at doing that. So we're just kind of reformatting that so that our clientele can become their own kind of expert at what's happening. Maybe they want a ski vacation property in Vail. Maybe we focus on 1 week specifically on ski properties as we're going into the fall, right? Maybe as we go into the summer, we're focusing on mountain retreats so people can escape the Florida heat. But there will be a system and a theme so that we can become experts in addition. And it's really just sharing resources and that knowledge with our customer base.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, I did it in a different way. I did it like I'm doing it now. Like, I'm talking to real estate agents, but it's ridiculous. I didn't do this to generate more business. I did it to get out of the business, but it just generated more business. And finally, I'm out now. I'm finally coaching everybody who hasn't heard, or it's probably in the intro to this, about breakthrough luxury, but it was unreal what it does for your business when you just reach out and learn and grow. And it's crazy. Learn, serve, grow. So now we're going to hone in on the final 3 questions.
Okay, I'm here for it.
First, what do you think has been your most powerful tool or resource in your success and rapid growth?
Wow. I would have said something completely different years ago. I think listening, being present and paying attention, listening to what people are saying, listening to the market, and just really paying attention. That has really, I've made intuitive decisions I never thought I would have made if I had my blinders on and not been present in the moment, paying attention to what's going on around me and really hearing what people were saying. I would have taken my business in a completely different direction. And I think because I was attuned to what's happening, paying attention and listening, I was able to adapt, pivot, and grow.
So 2 things. I'm going to ask you the questions at the same time.
Yeah.
And then answer them one at a time. The 2 questions are, you said, I would have said something different a few years ago. The first, don't answer this yet. What would that answer have been? And the second is, would you have taken it in? So back to the first question, what would you have said a few years ago?
I probably would have said my connections, that I have more connections worldwide than most agents in the industry, and not just through Sotheby's connections. I'm connected to some high profile family foundation heads, some high profile folks who own companies, because of my art and writing and other things, and some of my upbringing with my family. I have the fortune of being very established. I am great at building relationships with people, but I think it doesn't matter how great that relationship is. If you're not paying attention to what the person needs, it's irrelevant. So yes, connections are amazing to have. It's fantastic to be able to open doors where other people can't. But if you don't know how to walk through them and how to converse on the other side once you're in the room, it's really irrelevant.
Great advice. Now, I'm going to ask the other question. I want to add more. This is supposed to be final 3 and it's final 10 now. So, but that's what I love about the final 3. It does this. So the other part of that was you said, had I not listened, I would have taken my business in a very different direction. What do you think? What would that direction have been? What would have happened?
Interesting. I probably would have followed a more traditional route, right? I probably would have gone with the structure of, being the rainmaker and being the business leader in the, I don't want to say the Tom Ferry style, but there are a lot of different models of how you're supposed to do real estate.
Well, I would argue you are the rainmaker. You're just not rainmaking in the tradition, the way people think. What people associate to rainmaking isn't the same thing as what you do. You're rainmaking, bringing it in, right? You're rainmaking diamonds instead of poop or whatever. I mean, right? Like, love my analogies. Like I say, shit hits the fan. You say catalyst. That's what you're here for. Anyway, we have 2, right? Whatever. I'm having fun with you now.
Yeah. Who knows what direction things are on, but I'm really happy with where things are at. I'm really satisfied with the type of people I get to surround myself with. And, it really is. It's about creating a legacy and a brand that you're proud of.
And honing on that again, because I love your answer listening. And in that, I'd love for you to share for a minute when you say that. There's so much out there about this is my script. And those things work when you're selling a different kind of property. But when you're selling 4 times your market as an average sales price and double your brokerage that already holds the highest average sales price, that probably has a lot to do with listening. Now, here's the question. People think they're listening, and then there are people who are listening. When and how did you discover the difference? And what is it?
A lot of it's about eye contact and connection. When you're present with someone, when you're in the flow with them, you feel it. I think the biggest key indicator is when you're really genuinely listening, time tends to stand still. Are you ever in one of those really amazing moments? Go back to an amazing first date or, a magical wedding or some kind of moment in your life where you were so.
I am not dating or marrying my clients, okay?
No, don't do that. Don't do that. But maybe you're in this space where you're so engaged that time either tends to go really slow or really fast. You are just so present in the moment. It's not easily interrupted. And when you're there and you cut out that space and that time for your clientele, you can tell that they're fully engaged and they'll just keep talking to you and you can just keep asking questions. And there's just this flow. If there's no flow, you can feel it. You're just asking questions and it's a blank wall. You're wasting your time. You're wasting that time. So when you're in tune and in this rhythm, conversation naturally flows. You're paying attention, you're here, you're present. If you're not and you're faking your way through a list of questions or an interview. So I have a rule for myself. I will not do anything for a customer or client that I don't want done to me. It's like a golden rule, right? I don't send emails I don't like getting. I don't send 4th of July I hate getting holiday emails because every day I go to my inbox the next day and it's like, click, delete.
And now you've got to delete them all.
Oh, and I don't have that feeling. I don't ever want someone to see my name and feel that feeling. And I know it works for a lot of people. I'm not discounting or discrediting for those that it works for. Amen to you. God bless you.
And don't stop if it works, but you make a good point.
Not me. So when pitches and sales presentations and scripts, I hate them. Like disc profile. I'm a high D. I'm a high driver on the disc profile. Anyone who knows disc profile, Ds hate being sold. Most of our clientele at the upper echelon, they are where they are because they're a driver. I think it's a little bit more rare to see S's or C's, not atypical, but more rare. So when you're talking to someone at that upper echelon and upper caliber, don't waste their time. Get to the point. Be upfront about what you're trying to achieve. Very rarely will a script work, in my opinion. I haven't utilized it because I'm not comfortable with it, but I haven't really seen it work either. For some, it might. Again, I'm not saying that this is the status quo, but for me, it's uncomfortable, unnatural. doesn't mean I don't have a system or a rhythm of what I'm trying to uncover and discover. I have certain answers that I'm looking for and seeking, but I don't necessarily have a script on how to achieve that.
So here's what you just said, because I love how you talked about, I'm writing down what you said, I don't remember. But you talked about what it's like to listen, but I'm like, yeah, but that sounds like when you're not listening too, because it can take forever when you're not listening and you want to be somewhere else. But you brought it home because you started talking about empathy. Yeah. And then you started talking about, when you're listening, you're identifying and looking for what they're feeling, and you're coming to an approach of uncovering and discovering things. And if I'm coming at trying to remember a script and what to say when they say what, like, what am I uncovering other than like, I'm trying to memorize, I'm not engaging.
Your next question should be off of their last answer, right? Like if you're engaged and you're paying attention, you're going to ask a relevant question based on what they just said versus what you're trying.
Well, now, if you have a really good script, you can have an answer for every answer and a script for every answer. And then you want to talk about being preoccupied and time going by slowly or fast. Yeah, beautiful.
Anyone who excels at a script, high five for me. You're better in that realm than I am.
And there are some great people at scripting, but it's the art of like listening. Yeah. When you're a great scripter, the interesting thing is it's really because you were listening. Yeah. Okay, next question. So is there a book that you would recommend? We talked about Effortless, and we talked about, now I can't remember what the other one was, and I want to because it was a good one. Oh, Good to Great.
Good to Great.
So
Effortless, yeah.
What is the one book in life or career that is just like, this is a game changer?
The standard go-to, the number one book, if you're going to be on my team or likely even in my friend circle, you've probably read Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, period.
Okay. That book has come up like 3 times in a row in this show, and it didn't come up for a year, I think.
Yeah, it's a great one.
How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie.
Yeah. I feel like a great entrepreneurial aspect of it. I'm not sure where the copyrights and royalties are on it, but if someone wants to retitle that book, it does need a new title for today's time frame. But it's so relevant. If you can't be customer centric, if you can't put the person in front of you before yourself in any of your relationships, So secondly, the go-giver, right? Like be a go-giver. Yeah. I had the chance of meeting Bob Berg at the Breakers during the premiere Sotheby's big celebration for top producer. And you really do. You have to put yourself in the other person's shoes. You have to make sure that they feel honored and respected. And from that, all great things happen.
I love when you said, put yourself in their shoes. And more importantly, you said, make sure they feel honored and respected. It's awesome. That's like everything. At least that's awesome. Okay. Last question. As we reflect on our conversation today, let's just say we're going to forget everything. And you had one thing to choose that we were going to take away. What is it?
Be authentic and true to yourself and follow your heart. Because in that, all great things will happen. And I haven't said that at all during this, but really genuinely, that's where you'll be your best self, whether it's in real estate or outside of that. So just be authentic and true to yourself.
Awesome. Miranda Cady in Orlando with Premier Sotheby's. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It was so much fun.
Thank you for your time. I love this interaction and I can't wait to see you in Atlanta soon.
Thanks for listening to the Jere Metcalf Podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. If you like this episode, please share it with friends. To find more episodes, search Jere Metcalf Podcast on any platform for podcasts, or go to JereMetcalfPodcast.com. That's JereMetcalf.